breaking down the Vikings from the perspective of a former NFL General Manager of the Year. It's Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, presented by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
Welcome to Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, brought to you every Monday and Thursday during the Viking season by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers and the 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 on 1500 ESPN, available 24/7 on YouTube via link from the Score North website. I'm Jeff Diamond, former Vikings GM, former Tennessee Titans president. Our producer is Robbie Rosenhaus, and Robbie's doing a great job today getting our clips ready. And those highlights, shall we call them lowlights, Robbie, after the Vikings fall to the Steelers in Dublin, Ireland, their first loss ever in an international game, regular season or preseason. And they made it a go at the end, but a little too late, shall we say. Kind of like the USA Ryder Cup team on Sunday. Too little, too late. And for the Vikings, they fall 24-21, move back to 2-2, a game behind the Lions, now 3-1, took care of the Browns 34-10 in Detroit on Sunday. And the Vikings will face that Cleveland team on Sunday in London. So kind of sets up a week and a game on Sunday, Robbie, that is, I would call pretty much must win. And you hate to call it a must win in week 5, but it's almost at that point when you look at what's ahead after the bye week following Cleveland, when they hit the world champion Eagles, followed by a Thursday night short week at the Chargers, who are leading their division. Then you go to Detroit, who the Lions are starting to roll again. And then they play Baltimore, which the Ravens are having their issues, a lot of injury problems they're having. So that may be one here that is not as tough as we projected, but the Ravens still have Lamar Jackson, and they've got plenty of talent on that team. That's a very much a gauntlet of 4 games, which is why they need to get this win over the Browns on Sunday. But first of all, going back to the game in Dublin against the Steelers, Robbie, I just felt like all the injuries on the offensive line, not only the offensive line, but missing a couple of key guys on defense, Andrew Van Ginkel, Blake Cashman, and then you think about Aaron Jones is not there, although Xavier Scott did a nice job, and certainly Jordan Mason runs hard, we know that. But these are still guys that are important for depth. But that offensive line is really a problem at this point, with 3 starters out yesterday, as Brian O'Neill left, getting examined for possible MCL, could put him down for a couple of weeks. Ryan Kelly with another concussion, who knows what his future holds. And Donovan Jackson was out with that wrist injury. So that offensive line is very problematic heading into a game against the number 1 defense in the NFL in Cleveland.
Yeah, no, it's going to be difficult. And as you and I will get to in some of these highlights, the offensive line certainly had their issues, and that intentional grounding on the last drive of the game certainly was the nail in the proverbial coffin. I think much akin to goaltending in hockey, you can get by with an average goaltender. Obviously, you're looking for an elite goaltender, just like you're looking for an elite offensive line in football, and you can get by with an average offensive line in football. But once you start digging into the second and third stringers and you're getting to guys that are signed off the street or don't have any experience, then it becomes problematic for the offense, the quarterback, the coach doesn't look good, and it becomes a disaster. And that's what we saw on Sunday.
Yeah, it definitely does. Carson Wentz took 6 sacks in the game, had that very costly intentional grounding, as you said, when he was pressured by Nick Herbig, who beat Blake Brando, who was replacing Donovan Jackson. And Michael Jurgens has had his problems at center after Ryan Kelly went out. And we know Justin School is certainly a big step down from Brian O'Neill. So a lot of issues for the Vikings, but there are, I think, some things that Kevin O'Connell can do to compensate to a certain extent to help Wentz or JJ McCarthy when he comes back. And that could be with a quick passing game. That could be, which they did early in the game with a lot of quick passes to Jefferson on that first drive was a beauty, going right down the field, a lot of quick passes to Jefferson. But part of the problem with the offensive line, when they have to hold Hockenson in the block, they lose him as a Pro Bowl caliber tight end. And I think Josh Oliver needs to play more. He was in for 21 snaps yesterday, and that's 28% of the offensive snaps. He needs to play more to help with the run blocking and also with the pass protection. But let's go to some of our highlights, or as we said, somewhat low lights from the game. And here was maybe the lowest low light was in the early second quarter. Aaron Rodgers had a pretty good game. And they had a good game plan too. The Steelers, they got the ball out of his hand quick against that Vikings pass rush that was missing Van Ginkel, which is a big loss for a Pro Bowl edge rusher. But on this particular play, Rodgers hits DK Metcalf, and here's where I think they missed Blake Cashman, their leading tackler, their best pass covering linebacker, and I think that he could have maybe got deeper in the zone here where Metcalf found that opening and then just outraced the secondary, some bad tackling, some bad angles by Theo Jackson and Josh Metellus. End result, 80-yard touchdown.
Coming off a 6-for-6 drive. He'll throw to begin this drive, and it's DK Metcalf. He's in the loose. There goes DK. A block from Austin. Inside the 5. Into the end zone. 80-yard touchdown. Rodgers to Metcalf.
That's Joe Davis and Greg Olson on the NFL Network on the call of that 8:30 a.m. start here locally, 2:30 in Dublin. We'll have a repeat of that timing again on Sunday against the Browns in London as the Vikings make that unprecedented double dip and hopefully have a better result. But second quarter, Vikings trying to claw back into the game, and they're down at this point. And on this drive, late second quarter, Carson Wentz hits Justin Jefferson, 29-yard play. And if Justin doesn't slip, and Justin didn't blame the surface at Croke Park, but you got to wonder when these international games, sometimes the field conditions just aren't up to the caliber of an NFL field. And I saw several players were slipping, but mostly they were Viking players, unfortunately for the Vikings. And in this play, Jefferson slips. He could have scored on this play.
Wentz is pressured. Wentz steps up and whips one to a wide open JJ.
So at that point, because he didn't get in the end zone, the Vikings ended up kicking a field goal at that point, and they have to settle for a 14-6 halftime deficit instead of 14-10. And then they were getting the ball coming out in the third quarter. Unfortunately, didn't have a very good series. Middle third quarter, Carson Wentz is intercepted by the All-Pro TJ Watt.
Without the left guard Jackson, without the center Kelly, without the right tackle O'Neal, and then this is picked off. TJ Watt, as electric of a big play guy as there is on defense in the NFL, makes another big play right there.
And that led to a field goal, put the Steelers up at that point in the game. And the Vikings, going into this game, we knew the turnover battle was going to be key. These were the top two takeaway teams last year in the league. Each had 33, the Vikings and the Steelers. And the Steelers won that turnover battle 2-0. The Vikings defense could not force any turnovers in this game, which was a big problem. And actually that interception set up a touchdown by Kenneth Gainwell in the game. One of the issues for the Vikings in this game was their run defense. Kind of similar to the Atlanta game, Robbie, where they gave up 218 yards rushing to the Falcons that day, missing several starters. And here they're missing a couple starters. Again, the Steelers run for over 130. Gainwell has a career best 99 yards rushing or 91 yards rushing and 2 TDs. And so you look at 99 yards rushing, 5 5.2 yard average. They've got to stop Kenneth Gainwell. He's never been a full-time starter in the league. Was a backup in Philly and was a backup here to Jaylen Warren, who was inactive for this game. So you would think that they could have done well in run defense as they did last week against Cincinnati, but that was not the case. And that set up Rodgers to just have his way with his short passes. He never threw a ball basically over about 15 yards all day. And Rodgers making plays in this game, didn't turn it over. So on this particular play, as we said, the Vikings at this point, late in the fourth quarter, finally get things going. And Jordan Addison gets loose, kind of amazingly gets loose for an 81-yard catch and run.
First and 10, it's blown coverage, and it's Addison. He's down the sideline. He will take it inside the 5. Peyton Wilson saves a touchdown.
Robbie, you thought he was going to score there, didn't you?
Yeah, no, I did. And it was quite a fleeting moment in the game because there weren't a lot of good ones for the Purple and their faithful. And you look at start to finish and to hit on what you said about Gainwell and having over 100 combined yards. If you look back to last week's game where the Steelers played the Patriots, they forced 4 or 5 turnovers from Drake May and that Patriots offense and ended up only accumulating 150 yards of total offense. So think about what they did in this game compared to what they did last week. I think the Steelers were on a mission. They had not played well on offense the last couple of weeks. Week 1, they did whatever they wanted against the Jets, but this week they met Flores and they decided to carve him up, and the Vikings had pretty much no resistance. Even though they only gave up 24 points, it's still, they went up and down the field and pretty much did what they wanted.
Yeah, they did. The Vikings defense had a couple good moments. They did have a fourth down stop in the fourth quarter that got them the ball back and enabled them to score again and set up kind of a frantic finish. But overall, yeah, it was definitely a tough day for the offense. Jordan Addison, we mentioned on this play, the 81-yard catch, and he ends up with 4 catches, 114 yards in his return from the suspension. But he did have a couple drops, which also doesn't help. Justin Jefferson had a big game, 10 catches, 126 yards, but 8 of those catches for 97 yards in the first half. And on the final drive, the ill-fated final drive, shall we call it, Justin was not targeted at all. And I'm thinking, fourth down, throw it up to Justin as they did in Buffalo a few years back, as Kirk Cousins did. Throw it up to Justin, let him make it an incredible catch, give him a chance. He never saw a ball on that last drive. Now, maybe the Steelers were triple covering him, perhaps. I don't think so. I think they were doubling him, and that's why they figured to go to Addison. But there were a lot of Steelers in his vicinity too on that play. But the key play on that last drive was the intentional grounding we mentioned earlier that basically killed the last chance. And here was that call.
Wentz is pressured. Wentz throws it away. Herbig is on him. Shouldn't that be grounding?
That was just a killer. Set him back 16 yards, lost it down. They're at their own 39-yard line with 43 seconds to go when that play started. So if they can just keep moving the ball down the field a little bit, obviously they have to hit the sidelines, but just move the ball. Maybe they're going to spring someone free like they sprung Addison free. But on this particular play, Brando gets beat by Herbig on a stunt, and that basically told the story. Kind of lights out for the Vikings. They fought in the game. They didn't give up. I'll give them credit for that, but it's still in the L column, which is not good. We're going to hear from the coach. We're going to hear from a couple of players of the Vikings after the game. But first, let's talk about our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers. GMC trucks weren't built overnight. Like every American achievement, they are a result of dedication to mastering the art of design and the science of engineering, to building upon prior knowledge year after year, decade after decade. GMC, over 100 years dedicated to the art of engineering and the ambition to always move this country forward. We are professional grade, well-qualified buyers. Get 0% APR on 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 Crew Cab models with a 5.3-liter engine with an average finance savings of $4,322 plus $1,500 bonus cash. That's a total value over $5,800 plus no monthly payments until next year. See your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealer today. Length of contract limited, deferred monthly payments for 120 days, must finance with GM Financial, down payment required at signing if applicable. Financial charges accrue from date of financing. Some customers will not qualify. Savings based on bank rate of 5.64%. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 9/30/25. And let's hear from the head coach, Kevin O'Connell, postgame. A rather subdued Kevin O'Connell, disappointed with the result.
Thought the guys battled to the very end of the football game. Way too much of a hole with clearly losing the turnover battle, and penalties continue to be, a critical factor. It's something I've got to get fixed. Specifically the pre and post snap penalties that when we give away yards, or we get things stacked against us, creating third and longers for our offense, or earn first downs that aren't necessarily happening between the whistle against our defense. I thought our defense kept us in it, battling a couple big stops, and then we were able to put together some 2-minute drives despite being down a few guys up front, which is never an excuse. Expect everybody to be ready to rock and roll and step in next man up, and had a chance to still win the football game in the end because our guys compete to the very end regardless of circumstances, and just didn't find a way to get it.
And as we said, a couple of things. Kevin mentioned the penalties. They've been a big factor all year, and the Vikings, one of the most penalized teams in the league, which is something that has to get fixed, as the coach said. And there were some really critical errors, critical penalties in the game against the Steelers. Will Fries, a quality free agent signing guard, but he's illegally downfield on the opening drive, which nullifies a pass to Jefferson that would have given him first and goal at the 6 instead of their push back to the 18-yard line. And that's a big play in the game right there that happens. And then you think about, well, Tavier Thomas on a kickoff return by Miles Price, 54 yards, holding, sets them back, way back in their own territory. They end up going 3 and out, punting, and the Steelers get a short field and end up kicking a field goal there to go up 24-6. 2 roughing calls in the game, which are really undisciplined. Byron Murphy got one, Dallas Turner got another, and they extended Steeler drives. So certainly a key factor that's happened. As we mentioned, the Vikings' run defense has to improve. I just think, Robbie, the defense has to somewhat carry this team until the offensive line gets back intact. Maybe by the Philadelphia game, we'll see what the situation is with O'Neal and with Kelly. It sounds like Donovan Jackson should be back then, but they have to. The defense has to step up, as they did against Cincinnati with the 5 turnovers, takeaways, and the 2 touchdowns. I think that's really the key thing that has got to happen. Clean up the penalties, as we said, and the Vikings had chances to get back in the game. They had a nice blocked field goal by Isaiah Rodgers, who's proving to be a big playmaker. And that kept the game close in the first half. So those are the things that they have to do more of in this game. And as we said, stop the run the ball better, and not have plays like the intentional grounding at the end. Carson Wentz talking about the game and the disappointing loss.
Yeah, I got to watch it back. At the end of the day, we lost. That's all I care about. That's all I'm concerned about. Got a bad taste in my mouth that the defense stepped up when we needed them at the end, got us the ball back. in those situations, it pains me to be left there out on the field with a chance and come up short. So I'm not here to evaluate the rest of the play. We had some chances, a couple tipped picks, those suck, not going to lie. Those are tough. They kind of derailed what I thought. We had some decent momentum going on a couple drives. And so, that was tough. But at the end of the day, we lost, and that's all that matters.
Justin, just 4 games in, how do you evaluate just the offensive execution overall?
We're still figuring it out. Just dealing with different circumstances, injuries, people having to step up in different spots. So it's difficult. This game of football is, not really predictable, and a lot of things can really, jump at you when you're really not expecting it to. So, but at the end of the day, just like you said, we lost. It's not really. We got to look at the film to really digest it for real. But yeah, definitely a sick taste in our mouth. Just hurting ourselves, really. Just shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah, I got to watch it back.
Yeah, that, of course, was Justin Jefferson, Vikings All-Pro receiver. Had a big day. Finally was targeted double-digit times, 11 targets, something that has to continue. And he looked great in the game. Unfortunately, had that one slip that could have been a difference maker. But Justin certainly did his part. And Carson Wentz, hard to totally blame him when he's getting pressured on 40% of his dropbacks. The 2 interceptions, both were tipped balls. He threw for 350 yards in the game. But what I think they miss with not having McCarthy is that mobility, and the fact that maybe JJ could have slipped away from the pass rush a couple times and run for first downs. I think that's something that they're looking for when they drafted him as a mobile quarterback, as an athletic quarterback. I don't know that he would have made any difference in the game, especially with the offensive line banged up, considering the problems he had against Atlanta when he was sacked a bunch. But certainly he is the future. And let's remember, he didn't have Christian Darrisaw when he was in there either. So that was a problem. Byron Murphy was talking post-game, and he talked about DK Metcalf, the coverage, and some of the mistakes by the defense.
Definitely a good receiver. Definitely a guy that's going to go out there and make plays. We knew he was trying to, Aaron Rodgers was going to get the ball in his hands, quick game, all those type of things. But we knew what we were up against. Obviously, better details on that play from the whole defense. Like I said, we just got to know where the premier receiver is and go, get better to the ball.
Yeah, you said quick game, but the quick release really kind of got you guys in the first half. How quick he gets the ball out to Rodgers?
He definitely was getting the ball out fast. Obviously, our goal was to go, force the check down, tackle, and all those type of things. But yeah, like I said, we knew he was going to do that. But had to go out there and make more plays.
Yeah, he was talking about Rodgers getting the ball quick, like 2.5 seconds or less. And that makes it tough to rush the passer, which means you got to cover tighter. But I think that Kevin O'Connell, he tried it early in the game to have Wentz getting rid of the ball quick, and he was on that opening drive. But what happened as the game went on, too many pre-snap penalties, too many issues, and all of a sudden you go from 3rd and 3 to 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 6 to 3rd and 11. Makes it really tough on the quarterback. And so they've got to clean up the penalties. That's going to be a key, obviously, in the game. I think it's going to be, as I said, a really important game against the Browns in London on Sunday. And the Vikings need that win to get back over 500 as they head into their bye week. And they're going to face that number 1 Cleveland defense led by Myles Garrett. So it will be a challenge. But the Browns had their troubles yesterday against the Detroit Lions, who are starting to roll. And we're going to talk about that and some of the other games around the league after, again, we hear from our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
GMC trucks weren't built overnight. Like every American achievement, they are a result of dedication, a dedication to mastering the art of design and the science of engineering, to building upon prior knowledge, year after year, decade after decade. GMC, over 100 years dedicated to the art of engineering and the ambition to always move this country forward. We are professional grade. Well-qualified buyers get 0% APR on 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 Crew Cab models with a 5.3-liter engine with an average finance savings of $43.22 plus $1,500 bonus cash. That's a total value over $5,800 plus no monthly payments until next year. See your local GMC dealer today. Length of contract limited. Deferred monthly payments for 120 days. Excludes residents of Pennsylvania. Must finance with GM Financial. Down payment required at signing if applicable. Finance charges accrue from data financing. Some customers will not qualify. Savings based on bank rate of 5.64%. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 9/30/25.
One other thing that I would question of the Vikings' decision making in the Steeler game, after the touchdown to Jalen Naylor following the long pass to Addison, the Vikings tried an onside kick. Onside kicks have such a slim chance of succeeding in the NFL now when you have to declare you're going to do it. And it's just, to me, there's 2:08 left in the game at that point. They have one timeout left. They have the 2-minute warning. I say kick it away, pin them back, and get another stop by your defense who had just held. You'll get the ball back in better field position than they wound up getting it back. And so that makes a big difference when all you need is a field goal to tie the game. Maybe they would have got the ball at the 40 instead of the 20, and a couple quick plays, and they could be right in Will Reichard's range. So I would have a quarrel with that decision to try the onside kick at that point. What do you think about that one, Robbie?
Well, I'm kind of a gambler mentality. So if you're thinking potentially let's get better field position, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to risk that, try and get the ball back, and I've got all this time. Why not go win it? Why not go down the field and win it? You just hit Addison on a broken coverage that he should have scored on or could have scored on and didn't. Why not try and do that again and try and go back to the well? But I understand what you're saying. Like, that's the sensible play, to kick it deep and try. Maybe if they were home with a home crowd and backed up in the end zone near that huge drum by the big doors.
Right.
Potentially, but on the road in Ireland, I mean, people are half in the tank already. The game is filled with jerseys from the Jaguars to the Steelers to the Vikings to the Cardinals. So when you go to Europe, and I was at the game last year when they beat Rodgers at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and they ended up walking off with a interception late in that game, but unfortunately they weren't able to walk off with the victory in Dublin. But I see what you're saying. I get aggressive as a head coach, and I respect the decision.
Yeah, and you could go either way, but I would rather have them kick it away. But as it turned out, they still had a chance, and they got to their own 39, and then got the intentional grounding, and that kind of killed their opportunity at that point to make a big move. The Vikings did not get a lot of help in their own division on Sunday. The Lions, as we said, rolled over Cleveland. Jahmyr Gibbs, 91 yards rushing. St. Brown had a couple touchdown catches. Jared Goff didn't throw for many yards in the game, but they still got the win and had a 65-yard punt return for a touchdown by Cleve Raymond in the game. Lions leading the division at 3-1. The Packers and the Cowboys had a wild game on Sunday night. Jordan Love and Dak Prescott had a duel, both over 300 yards. Micah Parsons had one sack and a few tackles. Not a real terrific game in his comeback to Dallas, but I think the Packers are probably disappointed to come out of there with the tie, but they're 2-1-1, and the Bears turn in an upset in Las Vegas with a blocked field goal at the end of the game against ex-Viking kicker Daniel Carlson. Bears are all of a sudden 2-2 with a couple wins. A couple interesting games around the league. Kansas City beats Baltimore to improve to 2-2. A couple of unbeatens fall. The Chargers lost to the Giants in Jackson Dart's debut, and Jacksonville upset San Francisco. And so the only remaining unbeatens, the Eagles, who the Vikings will see in week 7, and the Buffalo Bills at 4-0. And so it's going to be certainly an interesting week in London as the Vikings prep for this big game coming up with the Cleveland Browns, their number one defense. But Joe Flacco, I'm not sure how long he's going to last in that starting role. He had a rough game against the Lions, took a bunch of sacks, threw a couple interceptions, fumbled the ball. And Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders may be the quarterbacks sooner than later, and it could be next week if Flacco struggles against the Vikings defense. But that defense is going to have to play better, and they need to get Andrew Van Ginkel back in the lineup, their Pro Bowl edge rusher. So we will be back on Thursday to preview Vikings and Browns as the Vikings try to bounce back and get to 3-2 before their bye week and before that tough schedule coming up in October. And this has been Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, brought to you every Monday and Thursday during the Viking season by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers and the 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 on 1500 ESPN, available 24/7 on YouTube via link from the Score North website. This is Jeff Diamond with Robbie Rosenhaus, and we will talk to you on Thursday when we preview Vikings and Browns.